good evening. It's my pleasure to be here. My name is Morris Thomas. I'm a professor of geography, recently retired from Lansing Community College after 31 years. And at present time, I'll be a part-time instructor at Michigan State University teaching geography. I grew up in this area where Idlewild is located, and it was simply very fortuitous that I was asked to talk about it because it's something I enjoyed as a kid. And then it's become something very important in terms of the culture and the geography and the history of the Midwest with the black population. So to start it out, Idlewild is a resort area that was developed starting formally on paper around 1912. Okay, and it still exists there, but it's been transformed in many ways over this period of time. So just to give you a little background, Idlewild is located way up here in Lake County. Okay, to give you an idea, here's Lansing. Here's Lansing, this black dot here, and this is Idlewild up in Lake County. I'd say it's about 225 miles from Chicago, from Detroit, probably 270 miles from Chicago. Again, Lake County is this big county here. And you're familiar with Ludington, which is in Mason County nearby, Manistee, which is where I was born, and a number of other people in this room was born here. This is Mason County. Of course, down here is Grand Rapids, here's Lansing. Well, Idlewild is an interesting phenomenon. Idlewild itself is not an incorporated city. Idlewild is a place, okay? An unincorporated place. But it lies in something called Yates Township. Now, Yates Township is a 6 by 6 mile area in Lake County. And then Idlewild is an area within that region. Now, it's like I say, there's a post office there, and there's a school there, but it's not like a city. You can think of Idlewild sort of like Hazlet, Holt, those kinds of phenomena. They're part of a larger unit. But the idea of Idlewild started, like I say, way back in 1912 when some developers from Chicago, and it's very interesting, these developers were all white. And the name of one of the most famous names is Branch. And there's happens to be a little town nearby called Branch. That's where I used to get my mail from, and I never knew the significance of it until I started doing this research. And there are still a few branches that still live in this Lake County area. Anyway, these people platted 2,700 acres, or basically 4 square miles of land in 1912. And the idea was then to sell it to blacks who could come and enjoy the rural recreational areas. Now, this one was a pretty decent, on the upside scheme. I've uncovered about 4 or 5 schemes where land was purchased in the UP, farther north in Michigan, and then the idea was to get black folks to go up there and settle on these parcels. And all of them failed. Okay? All of them failed. Well, Idlewild held. And what they did is after they got this land, they immediately divided up into lots, and you're familiar with platting. Now, the interesting thing is these lots are very, very tiny by today's standards. 25 feet wide, 100 feet long. Okay? And so you can imagine, I'll show you a map of this Idlewild area with all those little lots. So you can imagine what they were thinking, like, aha, we could sell a whole lot of these. Now, the price was going roughly $35. And today's money, I figured it out, according to the computer, says that'd be $455 for these little lots. And so Yates Township, which is here, and then Idlewild itself is really just this little area up in here. So take a look. Here's a USGS map of this area, and the green represents forest. So it's a wooded area. Lake County is like 86% woods. Yates Township is mostly woods, and Idlewild is mostly woods. And here's the center portion, here's the essence of Idlewild. This lake here has a very crooked feature to it. It actually, the old name for it used to be Crooked Lake. But these developers said, aha, that's not going to sell well, Crooked Lake. So they changed it to Idlewild. And so they plotted, like I say, all these lots around here, in this, from this corner down here, over here. So this is really Idlewild, even though the name is over here. This area is here is Idlewild. Then around 1927, 1921, somewhere in that range, you see different dates. The Idlewild Lot Owners Association was established. Now these were all black men, and these men were men of physicians, doctors, middle class. They bought into this, and they actually platted some other land nearby, and then gained title to this original Idlewild area. And so roughly by 1930s, this place started to take off. Now, I looked in the 1930 census for Lake County, and there's nobody there as permanent resident, okay? I'll show you some statistics a little later on here. Around 1920, there were only 19 black people in the whole Lake County, all right? But then it changes very dramatically after that. And so to show you some of that change that's taking place, well, let me show you these lots. See, there's those little lots. See, that's how small they are. And the names of the roads are very prestigious, you know, things like Paris Boulevard and all these kinds of names that would signify people want to come there. So the essence of Idlewild again is this lake right up here, Crooked Lake, or today, like I said, is called Idlewild Lake. Right there. Paradise Lake, okay, there was a nightclub over here and so on, but this is the essence of what Idlewild is all about. Quick statistics. Here's how Idlewild and Lake County grew. This heavy line here represents the population of Lake County. So back in 1920, there were about this many, and then Lake County grew rapidly. Here's the population for Idlewild, these little bars going up to here, okay? I shouldn't say Idlewild, let me correct that. That's the population for Yates Township. Most of Yates Township is black. Probably, it's ranged from 75 to 85% black. And most of the black population lives around the lake. If you go to the eastern part of Yates Township, there you find a significant number of non-whites. Now the essence of Idlewild, as far as I knew, and probably most everybody in this room, is what was called the island. If you can, I'll pull back and show you this one map once more, and then I'll show you what the so-called island was. Right up there, there's a lake up here, and right there was a little island, about 700 feet across there, probably 200 to 300 feet wide. That island became the essence of Idlewild, because this is where all the action took place. Can you guys read those numbers up there? Number 2, that was the nightclub. I'll show you a picture of that. I mean, that was a nightclub that I got in trouble with as a teenager. I wasn't allowed to go in there because it was dull. We used to, well, like my wife's not here. We used to sneak around back, climb up on a barrel, and peek in the windows. The barrel would fall over, and we'd fall over, and then we'd run. Now, when we weren't doing that, we spent a lot of time over here, number 1. Number 1 was an incredible skating rink. Now, when I think of it, I have no idea how big it was. Probably as big as this house. And it had posts like that scattered throughout the floor. Now, a skating rink with posts in it. So you had to be a very daring skater to go out there. But it was, I mean, there was this one man who lived there, Gilbert Washington, who was like the maitre d' of the skating rink. He ran the rink, and if you fell, you could just know that pretty soon Gilbert would be standing over you, and everybody would go around him, and he'd help you up, and you'd go on. And he was the essence of skating. So that skating rink, you know, it was really, really something to do. A lot of people just stood around and watched and looked, but it's gone now. Okay, over here, number 5, those were a series of like concession stands, hot dog stands in here. This was one of the major hotels, first hotels were built there. I remember getting tricked again at number 5 there, that hot dog stand. Gorgeous young lady from Lansing was standing around. Yeah, I'm a local country bumpkin from up there, okay? And so I said, hey, varsity jacket on, all my medals jingling, jingling. I said, yeah, I'm looking smooth. How you doing? Oh, she thought, very nice. I said, you from up here? I said, yeah, I'm so-and-so from up here. And she said, well, I'm from Lansing Sexton. So, yeah, I know about you guys. I heard about you in the newspaper. You guys won state championship in 1959-60, okay? And she was so impressed. I said, I got it. I said, how, let's go get a hot dog. So we went over next door, got a hot dog. We were eating, I'm talking. And just as soon as she finished with her hot dog, her boyfriend came and grabbed us. Come on, honey, let's go. And she took off. And there the old country boy was left sitting there. Okay? I mean, it happens. Down here, just across the aisle, was a little variety store, like I guess it'd be a souvenir shop where you could go and buy all kinds of little things in there. Farther down here, like at 9 and 10, was a grocery store in there. Post office was in there. Down in here were some other structures, which I don't really know the names of. But these were the major commercial things here. But this is what made up. Today, I believe, only this building here remains. Has anybody been up there recently? I was up there a few years ago.
I was up there last year.
Okay, I think only this one remains today as a structure. All right. So let me show you some photos of these areas. Here's a picture coming into Idlewild from the east, from the west, coming from Baldwin along Baldwin Road. That was our main avenue. You come barreling down through there, looking around, seeing what was going on. All right. Now, I have a different perspective because I lived up there. Now, people who came from Lansing, Detroit, Chicago had another one. Here's one of the older hotels, one of the first modern hotels there. And you can tell this 1957 or 58 Ford, right? For your car people. The essence of Idlewild, of course, was the lake. And I think I only went swimming in that lake once because my uncle owns a property on the water, and we jumped in after some little bluegills and got wet. But basically, even though all these lakes are around there, I just avoided the water. To this day, I cannot swim. But that beach holds a treasure. If I can digress right quick, one of my neighbors, a young man from Jackson, my contemporary now, they were up there and they watched the gentleman come out of the nightclub, and he'd go around back, just open up his trunk, take something out, take a nip, put it back in, close it, go back in. Well, one time he left the trunk open. Now, teenage boys, they were on it. They go over and find out there was a case of whiskey in there. And so instead of just taking one, they took the whole case. Went down on this beach, and I think he told me there were 7 or 8 of them, and they proceeded to drink as much of it as they could. Well, then they realized, what are we going to do with it? Well, let's bury it, come back get it. So they buried it in this beach somewhere, just like in the movies. And they came back and they never found it. They never found it. And I said, you ought to go back up there and look. I mean, it'd be a classic buried whiskey from 40 years ago. Here is the Paradise Club. There was a lake a little farther to the west of Idlewild Lake, and this was one of the major nightclubs. Now, folks, people that would come to these places like Paradise Club, and this is the one that I know. This is the one that I used to peek in the back. Phil Giles says this is the front main entrance there, and you would see everybody going in there on Friday, Saturday nights. 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day, huge. They estimate as many as 25,000 people came there on the 4th of July in 1959. And I was probably one of them because I was like, 12th grader, 9th grader. We could go with the big boys. They'd drop us off and they say, pick you up at 2 o'clock. But we'd wander around and get into trouble and do whatever we could. But this place here was totally integrated. Everybody from the region would participate, as well as the people who would come in. And so a lot of the locals that I knew, I even babysat for local people who were white, who would participate, go down there and watch the people. Della Reese, Sarah Vaughn, Sammy Davis Jr., Jackie Wilson, Four Tops, Nat King Cole. I mean, those kinds of people came to these clubs out in the woods in Lake County. Okay? I mean, it's really, we didn't know how good we had it. Here's another picture here's the larger picture of the club, and then here's the nightclub, that's the hot dog stand where I lost my money, right there. But like I say, on a good weekend, you would see back to back, lined up both ways, Cadillacs and Lincolns like that. Just huge. It's like a traffic jam on 496 that's 5 o'clock. And we'd all just be standing there, you know, it's like seeing all these people. I mean, I saw sports stars, you know, like Joe Louis. There was this guy that ran the hurdles, Hayes Jones from Pontiac. I was impressed with him because I was a sports star, okay? But he was only little, and so I said, well. Here's one of the grocery stores, another shop in downtown Idlewild. There's the post office. My aunt was a postmistress there for years. Okay. One of the residences, one of the nicer residences, and I think this actually belonged to the only doctor in Lake County. For many, many years, the only doctor in Lake County was a black man named Lorenzo Nelson. And he doctored the whole area. And I say he's the only doctor there. There's no hospital at that time when I was growing up. Maybe, I think 2 or 3 high schools was all. Here we see another shop. We see some of the problems that's going on today. Some of the houses are abandoned. And this is what has happened to Idlewild over the years. It went from a very prominent place to be to basically a one building remaining on the island, and it's been turned into, I think, like a little bed and breakfast shop now. And there are moves afoot to try to recreate that with concerts and so forth. It's going to be very difficult. Probably the way that Idlewild will make a comeback is that people my age, well, maybe a little younger than me, or maybe retire, but they remember that and go up and buy some of those lots, which are really inexpensive, and build a cottage there or house. And I know several people who are within the last 5 or 6 years who have bought some of those lots. You have to buy 4 of them at least, and then build a cottage up there and spend time there. Right now, hunting season is the big business. I mean, doing deer hunting season, it's like old times for a couple of weekends, and then it goes back to, so Lake County has been classified as one of the poorer counties in Michigan today. And largely the reason is there's a lot of retirees, and there are basically very few full-time, permanent, good jobs. Okay? Most of the jobs are seasonal in the tourist industry. Okay? And I'll put this map up, and I'll entertain any questions that you have about Idlewild. Any questions, anyone?
What type of advertising did they do? Was this by word of mouth?
Most of it was word of mouth. Most of it was word of mouth. Because you'd go back and say, hey, I had a great time. And boom, pretty soon another whole carload would come up from Detroit, Chicago, that sort of thing. Yeah.
What contributed to the decline?
Basically, it was progress. The Civil Rights Law of 1965 made it so that black people could go most anywhere. And this area no longer had a monopoly on the good times. People felt, well, I can go elsewhere. But prior to that, this was basically the only place they could feel really comfortable at. And I think a lot of us took it for granted, like, yeah, that's going to always be there. Besides the nightclubs, horseback riding was a good activity. There was this interesting man, I got to tell you about this, do I have time? On the southeast side of the lake, there was what they told me he was a Spanish-American war veteran, Sergeant Johnson. And by our standards today, Sergeant Johnson was, I guess you'd call him legally blind. Because you go out there and there's all these horses around and there's always some helpers, but it seemed like, oh boy, you don't get on that horse. Are you supposed to be blind, Sergeant? And so they said he could tell by your voice. So I still think Sarge could see, enough to, Anyway, he had the stable and you could ride his horses down this, they had a pre-designated trail. Did not like you to run his horses. You never run Sarge's horses. his wife followed you in the Oldsmobile to make sure you didn't run the horses. If you ran the horses, oh, Sarge would swear for 5 minutes without repeating himself. Now, one time I was a little boy, about 12, 14, I was with my cousin. That was my cousin's fault. Now, this time I was innocent. No, I was honestly innocent. And we were down there, it was about half a mile from my uncle's house, and he said, let's go ride the horses. And it wasn't a big deal to me because we had horses on our farm already. I'd already ridden horses, but he wanted to ride a horse. So we go over there, we get there, we had no money. So he convinced Sarge that he should do it on the crib, charge it. So we rode the horses. Well, by the time we got back, Sarge had called my uncle, and oh, we got reamed out so bad. I mean, I felt like this tall when it was all over. But Sarge was still there in the 1960s. When I was a graduate student at Michigan State, I still had his farm up there, and I remember selling him hay for his horses, and so he was still in business as late as 1965. Any other questions? Yes?
I have several questions,
Go ahead.
if you would kindly indulge me.
I'll try.
Over the last 25 years, I've probably been up to Idlewild maybe 15 times.
Oh, okay.
And the last time was maybe 2 years ago.
All
And
right.
I think that, personally, that there's a heartbreak that so much history is just gone.
Yes.
What you are doing, I think, is wonderful, and I hope that you keep getting
Well-
audiences, and that people will go up there and buy lots,
Well,
because I
thank
think
you.
that it would be wonderful.
My part is very small. There's some people doing a lot
But-
more than I am.
But many littles make a lot.
Yes.
And you are informing a lot of us
Oh,
of
thank
what
you.
is up there. Thank you. One question is, did the association own the island, or in platting everything out, did this group of developers hold the island out for special development?
They started that way, but then they sold individual parcels later on. There were individual parcels on the island that were sold. or something.
So individual people own, say, the hot dog concession stand?
Yeah, well,
So what-
yeah, they owned the stand. I think there was one, there was like some big shots. Phil Giles, the guy was one, and there was some other, Sonny Roxborough. These guys owned large chunks of the island. And then they put those little stands on there and then leased them out to people. But it was open up for,
For platting, just like
Yeah,
everything else?
right.
Okay, with the lots being as small as they were, did a lot of people buy multiple lots?
yes, yeah. A lot of people, if they could, they bought at least 2 lots. And a few years ago, my cousin, I got a family, he was the supervisor there, and he was selling them, and he would only sell them 4 because of that problem with sanitation and drainage and so on. So he said, you gotta have 4 lots in order to build a structure.
At least minimum.
Yeah, minimum. And what's happening now is that they are planning or in the process of putting in sewage, sewage system for that township, which was a real problem because the soils are very sandy there, and I can imagine what was going into the groundwater in the lakes.
Another question. I believe you said that it was in 1959, there were 25,000 people who came out for the 4th of July?
Yes.
What was the population of Idlewild when the 25,000?
Basically, about that time, I think the population was something like 300-400.
And the three,
Year round.
and the 300 or 400 were able to,
Absorb, sure,
yes.
yeah. Because again, a lot of people had cottages there, and they lived in those houses, and so a lot of that was absorbed that way.
so
And
was the
yeah.
economy basically, did it subsist on the tourists or the entertainment trade?
Yeah, almost solely.
And the 400 people who were year-time residents were able to handle it, were able
Well,
to
basically what
support
they
it?
did was, like I said, they worked, like I said, my aunt was the postmistress. She was government working a full-time job. My uncle worked for the Lake County Road Commission. He was the full-time, so they were kind of big shots. But they did, they just owned their own property. But the lot owners, or I should say the club owners, those people, they made enough to make it up. And then the other people were seasonal workers, and they just got by as best they could. And that's why I would say it was pretty poor. Now, just to the north of Idlewild is a region called Weber Township. And in Weber Township, the black population was even larger than Idlewild. But there was this kind of rivalry between the two, and the Idlewild people look down their nose at the Weber people and like, oh yeah, they're from Weber, that sort of thing. And a lot of the Weber people did work in, I should say, migrant work, picking fruit in the Ludington, Manistee area.
One last question. Thank you, all audience, for your patience and indulgence in this. You indicated that there is a movement to get Idlewild to resuscitate it, so to speak.
Yes.
Is the movement aimed specifically at blacks and African Americans, or is the movement now to bring it back to life in an integrated setting?
Well, I think it's probably being pushed and promoted by blacks. But I'm sure if there's a club there, they'll take anybody's money. Let them come in, they come on with it. Okay?
Morris, we got a person on our staff, Janice Lawson. When we were talking about this, we found out she has another perspective on this because she, as a very, very young woman, came up there and danced with the flamingo.
Which one?
Flamingo.
The flamingo? Oh Lord, I hope I wasn't speaking in it with you.
Tell us about it. Come on, Janice.
No, we were very well chaperoned. All we saw was the dance floor. And we were chaperoned out after we danced. And we didn't see Dave because we slept mostly during the day. And at dusk we wouldn't rehearse. But we were so chaperoned, I never did see that one.
But what was the, you were part of a dance studio in Detroit.
Josie Johnson School of the Dance.
And then your family owned some property up
My
there.
mother owned land, and it's just vague, but I remember my father asking her what she wanted to do with it, and I know they sold it, but that was years ago. Well, they probably sold it about 35, 40 years ago.
Yes.
How about the housing for the seasonal workers? Is there enough?
No, most of those people had their own housing. And when I say seasonal, they had their own. Now, there were a few people who would come up, say, from Chicago or Detroit, and maybe work, but they always made arrangements to live in somebody's cottage or maybe a relative at someplace. There was nothing like on Mackinac Island where there's an arranged barracks or anything like that. Yeah, lots of churches, and some of those structures I put on those churches. There was an elementary school. The high school students went to Baldwin, which is like 3 miles away.
How big is that?
Baldwin is probably around 2,000 people. They're famous for the big Jones ice cream cones. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes?
How was the fishing on that lake?
I don't think the fishing was really that great. There were those little panfish,
Yeah.
and little sunfish. It was mainly just to kick back and relax. You get your boat out on there and cruise around and catch a few. They did stock it, Paradise Lake, they stocked that one. And there was a fish hatchery right down the road in Baldwin. So I think they improved the fishing, but at first it wasn't that good. Deer hunting is the big activity now.
Okay, I just
Thank
want to
you.
make a comment
Sure.
about the skating rink.
Oh, yeah.
Growing up in Manistee, Michigan, when our father would take us just to watch the kids from Chicago and Detroit skate, that was like a thrill for us. So we just had fun vicariously, but we could never, my dad wasn't going to pay 25 cents for us to rent the skates.
So good. Her daddy
But
was a
still
good man.
fun.
Her daddy was a good man. I knew it. He was Mr. Smith.
But it was great. It was great.
Oh, the skating was something. I mean,
They were
they would go
fantastic.
around there, and you could just feel the wind because the building wasn't that big. Like saying that it just created a vortex going around there, and the skating.
Well,
Yes.
my uncle lived there permanently, he had 7 or 8 children, and his children now have gone to Detroit, Flint to work, but they've all gone back now
Okay.
to live permanently.
Okay.
And there's 4 who've gone back permanently to live,
Wow.
so that's
I was only going to say I precede Mr. Morris by about 10 years, but
And it was really active then too. And
Yeah.
I only regret that we didn't have the means to go there as often. And we did a similar thing, we were trying to peek into clubs.
Thank you, I love the old one.
Being alone. And one thing, you may know of Norris Ingalls, who writes the State Journal.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he and I were classmates in Manistee.
Norris is from Manistee?
Yes.
Well, we have to stop we have to stop because of the tape, and I want to thank you for your talk. And if we could continue.
Oh,